Hello, welcome into a new edition of the Chi Time podcast or Chi Time TV if you're watching this on a video. And my name's Clara Apollo, and I'm a personal empowerment coach and Qigong teacher, meditation mentor, and lots of other things in the background. So thank you for being here with me. And this episode has been inspired by my dear friend Cynthia Harrison, who is she just brought up this wonderful topic, right? Called Vulnerable and Victorious, How Sensitivity Became the Superpower of Visionaries. And I'm like, oh, vulnerability is not something that I found very easy, I must say. It really, kind of challenges me, if I'm honest. And I've always been kind of, I'm the firstborn, I'm a Leo, I get on with things, I do it, and then I trip up and I fall, and I'm like, oh, now I've hurt my knee, or that kind of, trauma comes in. Now someone's going to have to put a plaster on my knee, and I can't, it's all that stuff about it's okay to be both, and so what happened was when Cynthia dropped me an email and said, what do you think about this topic? Because I've got my new Spirit Whisperers series coming up. Do you want to be part of it? And I thought, well, initially, this is flipping edgy. This is like, am I going to be able to speak into this truthfully? And then I thought, let's write. Let's just write. And I just let a stream of writing come through me. And I had some tears because I was remembering about when I used to live without a home on the edge of a cliff. I know you've probably heard this story a long time, many times before, but I do cite it as the place where I really dive very deeply into the valley of the vulnerable, if I'm honest. And it's only in retrospect that I can look at it and speak about it now after having done quite a lot of processing. But I see it as it was a real gem for me to let myself reach that point, because I think we need to unpack the old to create space for the new. So we're going to talk about this topic. But first of all, let me introduce the superstar that is Cynthia Harrison. So here we go. About Cynthia, right? Witnessing the extremes of human experience as Cynthia moved through the world has led to her inquiring into, why do people behave the way they do? It's a good question, yeah. And her strong drive to understand the human condition, because Cynthia observes people, but she's also really widely read, and she includes the ancient texts too, in an attempt to understand what beliefs and conditioning patterns people follow. So she began with a bachelor's degree in anthropology, social work, and visual arts. Yep, she's a total artist, this woman. But she's also going on to work in mental health, acquired brain injury, homelessness, drug and alcohol addiction, and foster care. But Cynthia's speciality has always been about human behaviour, why we do what we do, and in particular for those who have experienced trauma and neglect. Because behaviour is a language in itself, and if we break it down to look at the body, we can gain immense insight into what is happening for a person and why. Now, Cynthia found that due to the limitations of talk therapies when working in the field of complex trauma, she sought other methods such as art and play therapy, and stumbled across the powerful results of sand play therapy. Well, that just sounds like really good, messy fun, deep, profound stuff. And then she went on to study Dora and Martin Kalf's teachings in Switzerland with the lessons at the Jung Institute. And to further support this inquiry, Cynthia gained a qualification in sensory motor psychotherapy, which looks at the impact on the body when neglect and trauma are experienced and provides interventions that resource the body to work the traumatic experience through the physical systems. So Cynthia has spotted, because she's absolutely fascinated by human behaviour, that there's gaps in many of the psychological models. And so she integrated the arts and the sciences, woman after my own heart there, and investigating the quantum idea of the holographic universe, producing artworks that attempted to make visible the invisible. So these inquiries led to the world of energy. Oh yes, we're on Chi Time after all, aren't we? Indeed. And Cynthia went on to travel the world and study with many teachers and numerous energy modalities, eventually becoming an energy medicine teacher and guide. So Cynthia's goal is to assist people to live well, bringing together psychotherapy, energy understanding, and the arts into new modalities. And that she found the international creativity movement and undertook the courses. And oh, you didn't do that. You found it. You found it and did it, right? Going on to complete the teacher's qualification. And then through this intentional creativity training, combined with past inquiry, she offers a complete experience, mind, body, spirit, soul, and all the interdimensional possibilities in between to enable transformative growth and unified education. And I'm going to get her on now because I know she's got some more stuff to say that's not on my list before we get into Spirit Whisperers. So welcome indeed, Cynthia Harrison, to Chi Time.
Thank you. Thank you. That's almost like your life flashing before you, you know.
It's
So
weird, isn't it?
I'm hoping I trust you and know I'm in safe hands. So it's not just my life flashing before my eyes.
No, exactly. No, it is. It's nice to give people a contextual arena as why you're here, what you've done, because when you come to the middle of your life, you've had experiences that really color what you're doing now. And anybody watching on Chi Time TV can see the amazing color behind you here. Color is clearly a very important part of your life, and it's something that comes up on in our inner landscape as well, isn't it?
Yeah. My core, I guess, my core way of being in the world is a creative, and I guess my core work in the world is conscious creative evolution. And if I was to label or introduce myself, it would be as a mystic metaphysician. And so everything that you've shared, which is sort of, I mean, it'll be interesting for people, that even my students, because I don't usually talk about those parts of my, I guess, bio or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But to sort of round all that up, the reasons why I went on that journey that you just beautifully shared was because of my mystical experiences and direct experiences, what I see, feel, sense, know, taste, smell, touch, how I am in the world. And when I looked out into the world, what I saw, how others were, and there was this difference. And so to understand who I was, who I am, I went on the journey of studying the human species, basically.
Which is a massive topic, isn't it? Let's face it. But
And I
deeply
continue
intriguing.
to,
Yes.
with myself as the main guinea pig in my
Yes.
research.
Oh, bless you. Wow, wow. But you also you share the information that's coming through. It's not just your own inquiry here. It's like you're doing this on behalf of humanity, aren't you? This is
Mm.
a calling in a way.
It is. It's almost, I guess it's sometimes I joke around and say, it's my selfish whim. And I think, others may recognize this in themselves as well, or not. That all my life I've felt so deeply. And so let's bring in sensitivities a little bit, because it links to the Spirit Whisperer. But so my family used to joke and say I was a hypochondriac, oh, you were right, and all the rest of it. What I was feeling was everybody else's pain and illness. And I didn't understand it.
Mm.
Although, now as an adult, I can see that my lineage is very, there's medicine men and women. My dad's twin brother is a medicine man. My great aunt, my grandmother's twin sister is a medicine woman. And when I was 8 years old, I'd go to her house, and she, I'd have a cough or something, and she'd be rubbing my chest from behind me. And I didn't know what she was doing, and doing all these points and stuff. And as an adult, I understood the reflexology and the energy medicine, but no one spoke about it. It was just what was done.
Okay.
So I think in my lineage, I was one of the first, other than my uncle, to speak out loud about, how we are experiencing the world, and hey, how are you in the world? And how do you see, feel, sense, know? How, when I look or I view, you know, when I'm looking at you and or anybody or anything, my question is always a question like, do you see yourself how I see you? When I look at my hand, or when I take a photo of my hand in the sun, and I can see, it's funny because it almost is like this, I see the blue around me. If I show you the photograph, do you see the blue as well? And my mind is this inquisitive, curious machine that wants to understand myself, but also the other. And by understanding the other, I have more understanding of myself.
That's it, isn't it? That is absolutely it. Curious about the world from different perspectives to get a broader kind of view of what this is all about. And that's so interesting when you said, do you see me how I see you? I don't think any of us see ourselves as other people do. And
No.
and taking you back to that, when you first started to ask and inquire about it, how did you feel then? Did you feel your courage coming through, or was it a very vulnerable place to be in? Dare I say this now?
Oh, my childhood was very unconventional
Oh, okay.
and very challenging. And I think that's why I specialized in complex trauma. And it's why myself and my husband now merged together, and we work with the love and fear, or the fear and the fear of love. So because of I mean, we could go to sort of links to the spirit whisperer stuff, like why, I guess, I'm what I'm doing now. Why did I bring up the vulnerability and victorious, or the sensitivities, and that becoming your superpower? Well, my sensitivities to touch in back into, okay, my energetics. So we could say I'm a sensitive. We could say I'm a highly sensitive person. We could say I'm a kinesthetic. We can say I'm an empath. They're all different ways of knowing. Some of us are all of them, and some of us are one of them. But there's a sensitivity, or there's a way of being in the world and experiencing and inputting the data. And the thing is that when we start to open up and do our work, for instance, or our play, whatever you want to call it, our evolution, it's either by choice or not. So it's conscious or unconscious. And when we're conscious, we can really see, well, I speak for myself, I can see, and my students, because I take them through it, that when we open, we become more sensitive. So that becomes scary. That becomes a vulnerable place, because you feel more, you see more, you sense more, you hear more, you taste more, you smell. Everything is coming in. Now, it's always been there, and it always is there. It's just that you can't tune into it when you're in the container that you're in right now. So as you stretch, which links to the vulnerability, as you stretch to what else? You know, how else am I? Who else am I? What else am I? And whatever other questions you want to ask, there's a stretch.
An
So
opening and an
yeah.
expansion, but there's also a courage to let yourself feel vulnerability, or to
Mm,
feel vulnerable without feeling like a victim.
yes.
So it's that,
And that,
dare I let myself be vulnerable? Is that okay?
mm. And to add to that, I think that's that part of that is our education or our information,
Mm.
whether we are understanding that. So I'm saying I grew up without the understanding. So my life work is educating and sharing, and I do a lot of free things like these series, and also, you know, free teachings, whatnot, all sorts of things, because I didn't have it. And so
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
sharing what I would have liked. And so when I have a direct experience with spirit, with what I call the beloved, and I feel into, is that helpful for somebody else? If I get a no, I just it's just how I am and what's going on in the world. If I get, this could help a lot of people. So I'll just share it in a post or a talk or in my classes or whatever. And so a lot of my programs have been, they're alive.
And
they're alive because I'm alive and I'm continually expanding, moving, growing. Yeah, questioning.
And you're also using the discernment filter. So you're asking the question, Spirit, is this going to be useful? And I find that very helpful thing that you've mentioned there, because so often in this arena that we're in, it's all like, tell your story. Your story is medicine, which it is, but not all of them, not all the time, are not full on. There's going to be parts that are going to be appropriate as they come round, yeah?
And who, like, so as a mystic, when I read something or when I'm speaking to you, I'm seeing it, I'm hearing it in another way. So when people text me, I feel what's underneath it. And so in a nutshell, I mean, there's I guess you can talk about the mystically inclined in all sorts of ways, but the mystic is a questioner. It's like, it's the curiosity of, okay, there's this line. So that's why the ancient texts are, so beautiful, in my opinion, because when I read any, and I'm talking across all religion, all ancient texts, ancient ways of knowing, it doesn't matter what necessarily somebody believes. For me anyway, that, I guess that's my belief, right? It's about what's the mystic understanding of that, what's there that we can't see without that way of knowing, without that ability to see beyond what is said. So a parable or a story or a or anything in the world, really. So it's that ability to see beyond what's really there.
Exactly. So it's not just the words that are in the story. In fact, that's why parables work better, because there's an underlying energy that is being shared, like you said, like with the text or other like words that are coming through as well. We're using the English language at the moment, but we're also connecting energetically, like you are listening to this. There's an energetic component to this. There's all sorts of information coming through, and we pick it all up differently according to our filters and our experiences and how our hearts are and how we feel in our bodies. And yeah, there's that that piece about being innately curious, and are we actually looking for the answer, or are we looking to explore the question and as many facets as it's wanting to reveal to us? And so, do you know what I mean?
I call it the mystic truth.
Okay.
So I'll say my work is around the mystic truth. Now, that people are going to have different ways of understanding what I just said. This is meaning making. So the anthropologist in me is looking at meaning making, right? Yes. Every word has a different meaning, a different understanding to everybody. Even if you're speaking English, well, who's English? Australian English, the Queen's English, American English, and any other, or a Western Australian English or a Northern Australian English, right?
Yeah. Or even Pidgin English. Let's just
Pidgin English, right? And there's different Pidgin English. So there's the Pidgin English in Hawaii, right? And there's the Pidgin English in Australia. And I can understand little bits of it because of the Australian Pidgin English. So anyway, making. So we could go on about this, but let's. So meaning making and the mystic truth is sort of like meaning making. And when I'm looking at the seed of something, where does it come from, and can I see it in everything? And that to me is that the love and fear, or the unconditional love, the purity of unconditional love, is a truth that is in everything. And if you can't see it in everything, then it's not unconditional love. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, I like that.
So that's sort of when I say the mystic truth, I don't say, oh, it's my truth or it's the truth. Everything that somebody says is a truth. In how I hear it, it's true, because everything is love and fear. Everything is a polarity in this world.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's there somewhere. And if somebody's saying something that I maybe it's not a belief of mine, or I can't quite see it yet, it's like, oh, interesting. That's yeah, I know that there's a truth there, because I understand the human condition of the polarity. That, okay, I'm seeing that, but if I just look this way, oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, right. So it's always curious. It's always being curious.
Yes.
And I think that's the key. So just to go, I mean, we're slightly going off into energy now, but that's the key as a, so I say spirit whisperer, but a spirit whisperer, see again, the wording, what's the meaning of spirit whisperer? Well, to me, it's consciousness. And so it's not whispering or talking necessarily only to passed over spirit, although it is. It's not necessarily speaking to spirit or the beloved of God, although it is. It's every aspect of this, of spirit, which is all the aspects of consciousness that make up the human as this species, right? So the spirit whisperer means, I've not talked about this before because it's just my baby, I guess. And now, you know, so thank you for bringing that out. I wouldn't have thought to speak about it, but think about what spirit is. Because some people will think, oh, it's mediumship and psychic awareness and trance and whatnot. Yes, and it's my direct experience with the beloved, because the mystic has direct experience. That's the difference. Once you have direct experience, you have access to all the other clairs, all the other ways of knowing, like you see, feel, sense, know, see. So that's the core, is to go direct, or to have that. I guess you could say, go to that still point, the you know, and you are all of it, and you have access to all of it from that space. So I sort of went off to the left or right there. So I'll bring it back to you, what you wanted to say.
It's really good that that you're up for speaking about this, because you interview so many other people, and how many folk just say to you, oh, what is this spirit whisperer thing then? What's going on here? And
no one's ever asked me. Nobody's ever asked me.
you know, what does it mean? I mean, it sounds like pure poetry, spirit whisperer. And yet actually, as you were describing that, it felt like it's opening the different layers of listening. It's, you know, and like, it's not just words that we get our communication from, as we said a bit earlier. So if we come back to this polarity thing, which, you know, we're in a world of duality, polarity, whatever, and the dance of the yin and the yang, the love and the fear, the up and the down, and that space in the middle, that place in the middle, that the still point, or I think you refer to it as the neutrality, and that being a place where you can access peace and resource, and so much. That's an intriguing spot. That's one of the places that I am deeply interested in, because it's kind of one of those places that I practice with the Qigong, particularly when you embody the figure of 8 movement, which I share in more depth on the Spirit Whisperer 4 series, just saying. It brings you into a feeling of it, and rather than just the brain going, oh, I like that idea. But the thing is, like anything, as soon as you've had the feeling and noticed it, it's gone. And you have to come back in again. So it's ever it's like the ever unfolding now moment, isn't it? And it's an intriguing space to keep drawing yourself back to, because in this world of crazy mayhem, let's just call it that, where can we actually come into our sanity, our connection to the Great Mother, to our hearts, to the Great Spirit, for the resource, for that truth, that mystic truth that you talk about, that is so fundamentally part of each and every one of us, but it's clouded over, and, you know, got so many layers. We have to get rid of it all to be able to come into it, which is what our practices are all about, right?
Oh, interesting. So I'm a Kundalini teacher, and you know, also
As well as
but that is a core piece, and understanding the numbers that go with that, which I want to bring in the 5, which relates to what you just said. So let me just, and we touched on this a little bit in Spirit Whisperer, but how if we can understand this 5. And so numerologists will think of it in all sorts of ways, I'm sure, but bear with me. It's about our incarnation when we come into the world as the number one, which is the soul coming into the body, number one. Number two is our negative mind, and how we are adjusting and traversing the negative mind as the soul in the body. That's number two. We get to, so we've got one, and then in the two, we're taking a step and seeing another. You see, so there's this whole, we could spend weeks just talking about each number and the spiritual bodies that go with each one, and the experience as a human within, soul in the, the body, the mammal, right? And then we've got the three, which is the positive mind. And so we're coming in, having to go, okay, the soul comes into the body. It doesn't come fully in. And so, like I sort of describe it as the upside down sort of triangle or iceberg, and there's the tip of the tip of the tip of who we are is in this physical vessel. And so a lot of the work that I do and a lot of what I teach is around bringing more light into that vessel, being able to bring more into the vessel, and that creates vulnerability and sensitivity because we have to stretch a little, and when we stretch a little we get scared. So let me go to 4. So 4 is like going into that neutral mind, but the 5 is where is the cross. It's the cross where we go. So bear with me. So 1 + 2 + 3 + 4 = 10. And there's the 10 bodies. And it goes into 11 and 12, but that's where we're acknowledging that me and God are one. I am that I, the beloved, the guru, whatever you want to call God, lives within me. And you are the temple, and that's sort of outside of those. You're moving from the birth into the body to experience life here, and then we get to the 5 it's around here, where that's the threshold. It's the bridge. It's the integration and the regulation, the communication link. And so when you were talking about this space of, yes, there is the neutral mind, right, where we sit, but then we're moving from that neutrality into this whole nother way where we've got the journey of from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? So this 5, this halfway to 10 is this, I guess, the balance, the in the center of the circular 10. The 5 is within the circle of the 10. Does that make sense? Or it's a little okay. So because sometimes I speak in some people say I speak in code, but it's really just bringing around this. And so it is the paradox, and the core way that the mystically inclined or mystics will speak of in paradox, or of paradox and understanding paradox, which is when I look at something or I hear something, I also hear the other.
Yes.
So that's why there is truth in it all, when it is when you're able to see it that way. And that is our journey. That is our journey in life. And there's different metaphor ways of knowing in all the scriptures and all the languages, that when you can see what they're saying, there is truth there. And so that's why you can say, or the Bible is this, or the Quran is that, or the Zohar is this, or the the Old Testament is the Torah, right? Is that all of these, and whatever other books there are, I'm intrigued by how people believe what they believe. And so I'm wanting to understand how we believe what we believe. So our beliefs and conditioning patterns set us up. And our beliefs and conditioning patterns come from our early childhood. And then, sorry,
Yes.
I'll let you have a breath.
Yes. And because as you're saying that, I'm remembering part of my teachings in the Qigong is all around the Tao Te Ching, and that when you read that, it's all in paradox. It's like the logical
Yes,
mind cannot make head nor tail because it's not supposed to. You've got
yes.
the underlying message that reaches through the logic that comes
It
into
will
the
make,
into a kind of gnosis. It's like it's something you recognize, but you can't quite put your finger on it because it's a feeling or.
yeah. And you can't, and this is, I guess, the point. So thank you for that. You reminded me where I was going with that. That when you're sharing and you're asking, because if I'm teaching, so I teach 10-month programs, 12-month programs, 7 sometimes, a lot of the bigger ones are long, at least a year. The reason is because I was saying my Kundalini name is uh, means the one who cleanses away to reveal God, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
So Simran Ishnan. So
So I
that's
mean
what it means.
I know
So the
there's so many areas we can go into here, aren't there? And
well, just let me pull
go on
this
quickly.
together,
Yes,
because
this one. Yes.
it's like the that clearing away, or that cleansing, or that revealing, we can only share at certain points in time. So if I'm teaching and I've got this aha, it may not be appropriate for where those people are at. So that's why a lot of the mystic teachings were secret teachings, or they weren't shared broadly. How I get them direct. Like I just know stuff. It comes in and I'll be like, whoa. So then I'll go looking for, is there somebody else who has, right? But my point is that there are these stages of development, and they relate, and I'll try and do it in a nutshell, because I think it's important to set up why we're doing what we're doing. At that core state, we see fear or we see love. That's it, not together. You're either in fear or you're in love. The next stage, you can be in fear, but you know that there's love and you can get a sense of it, right? So that's where a lot of humanity is. But the third level is where you're in fear and you're in love at the same time. That's the paradox, where you see both. And when it first starts to happen, it's really like, whoa, there's somebody's dying and I feel it so deeply, but I'm filled with this grace and I can't quite understand it. It's that where there's so much light in the darkness, and you can hear it, or we can speak about it or read about it or whatnot, but it's a direct experience. And so that's why giving direct experiences, how you do and I do, and we do in Spirit Whisperers, we get direct experiences or tools and techniques to start to explore what that is like for you in your body. Right. To be able to then understand, oh, that's what they mean. And so students usually will come back and say, oh, you would say the gold is in the trees, or I'd say, the trees are speaking to me. And then they'd come back after practicing and whatnot, and they'll be so excited. They'll be like, I understand what you mean now, because they've had a direct experience of
They've
it.
had their communing of it. But the other pieces here is about spiritual bypassing that can occur with all the, sorry to say it, the love and light brigade. Don't get me
Yes,
wrong, I am a complete
yes.
golden-hearted light woman, but I'm also really tuned in to the atrocities in the world. I'm aware of them
And yeah,
because they
yeah.
are there. And if we don't see that, we are ignoring part of humanity. And it pains me. It pains me like it does to so many of us. It's like, it's, yeah.
We
Whew.
feel it deeply. This is the thing. I said to my husband when he met me, I said, if you aren't willing to go to the dark, then I'm not the woman for you, because I am the feminine within the feminine, I'm masculine, feminine in a feminine body, but I am working with the Divine Mother, the great energy. You know, we could say the Shekinah, which is an aspect of the beloved that is here on the earth. And when we can connect with that aspect of spirit, that, like, you can sort of conceptualize it, I guess, as soul to spirit, right? So the aspect of us that can then merge and marry and really become one is, it's not necessarily the feminine and masculine aspects of God or the beloved, because there is not that. But if you can, it's just, see, its meaning, its language, it becomes difficult to be really true about explaining this part of it, but it's a connection there, and that is the drop of the feminine, so to speak, in, you know, everything here, even the those who identify as men and masculine are the feminine to the other aspects, right? Because it's polarity. So everything here on this earth, in one way, see, there's truth and non-truth in everything that I've just said there, because I'm also, you know, if any of you that know biblical Hebrew, every sort of word for things is either a masculine or feminine. Even water is feminine, you know, all of these ways of knowing. But at the core of it, bringing it back to that point of, okay, well, how do we understand this? If, and I guess, again, it goes back to belief. But my way of knowing is that there is a connection here, an energy here that we can connect with and bring into us more, right? Some
Yes,
call it
definitely
the feminine, the Shekinah, the Great Mother, whatever. And through that energy, then we can connect to greater spirit, or the other aspect of spirit. Does that
So,
make sense?
yeah,
Or
because it's leading into, like, when you're vulnerable,
mm,
who holds you? To me, when I
mm,
was living on the cliff and I went into my deep dive of vulnerability, it was the Great Mother. She was the only thing that I could turn to. I'm so grateful for that experience, and that, yeah, it's the yin. If we don't want to use a gender,
there you
then it's
go.
the yin and the
Well,
yin and the yang. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like the yin holding principle is the container, so that the yang, the light, the action can land in something. And we all need to be held, especially when we're feeling vulnerable. So how do you hold yourself in your vulnerability, and
Mm,
as well as, you know, reaching out to your friends so that you don't feel completely flipping isolated? You know, big old long story. Cynthia Harrison is here speaking into all sorts of things. I didn't know we were going to go there, because she's got this new series coming out. It's actually Spirit Whisperer 4, isn't it? And
yes.
we met each other probably on Spirit Whisperer 1 ages ago when I was.
We might have met before. We might have
Right
met
down.
on the Arts of Healing or one of those other
Oh
ones.
yes, 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 yes. That,
Yeah, because before Spirit
yeah,
Whisper we
before
met.
Spirit Whisperer,
Yeah,
and
because I've
that
done
was.
other series as well before Spirit
Yeah.
Whisper.
So, what
Mm,
called you to this, from vulnerable to victorious? What was that? When
mm.
did that land, and what
I guess,
inspired you to move it all
yeah.
kind of into
I
where it
guess
is
we've
now?
already touched on it. So let me just pull it together a little bit. So working with people going through these stages of development, their conscious evolution, and even, you know, because I am a trauma special, you know, therapist special. I don't work as a therapist as such, but I can. But that it is within my work. So people are moving along, and they're getting to a space where we could call it the fear of love. So they're opening up and they're having direct experiences with the beloved or that energy, and they're in awe, they're in bliss, they're like, oh, right, and their whole body. And then as they're coming down or out, their stuff will come up. It's the expansion contraction. And a lot of people, so some of the viewers may or listeners may have experienced this, where you have some people call them heart awakenings, or little sort of, you know, bliss moments, and then you might get a tear, or you might feel a little low afterwards. it's the expansion, contraction, it's the love
Mm.
and the fear.
Mm.
But what we call the fear of love is where you connect and then you push away from that love. And we can see it in, human to human relationships. We can see it pushing away from our magnificence, our success, it's like sabotage, really.
Mm.
But it is this fear of love, and there's the fear of fear. Now, the fear of fear is like more the pain, and it's not the fear itself that you're afraid of. It's just say, I'm going to run a marathon and it's going to hurt. Running the marathon isn't what you're afraid of. You're afraid of it's going to hurt. Or, I want a relationship, but when it starts getting really intimate, my worthiness or my ability, my beliefs around my ability to be able to be loved or be enough, or, all of our stuff. Now that in some ways can connect to our attachment and attunement in infancy. So what needs weren't met? And when our needs aren't met, that, I'm just looking at the language I want to use, that can mold us and how we are in the world, meaning our personality, what we lean into, what we lean away from. And so we can navigate that. That's what the sensory motor psychotherapy stuff is about. But also we have ways of, energetically and the breath and feeling into it. So even the gong at the beginning that you did, and I do in my series as well, is that just dropping into the body. And the more that you do that and come home, so I'll take you through a breath in a moment it's profound, but it's really simple. And I think it'll give us an experience of what we're talking about. So I'm seeing that people are they're extremely evolved in their light work, let's say. They're conscious evolvers, right? I have a program called Evolver, and they go through these processes of activating dormant sensory systems. And as they do that, they become more of who they are. And as they become more of who they are, of course, the light comes, the shadow comes, the light comes, the shadow comes. So this vulnerability, I have the ability to, if trauma comes up for people, I can address it because that's my background, in these programs. But I was looking at raising awareness, I guess, that in any aspect, whether you're on a spiritual journey or life is, like the word spiritual sort of gets overused sometimes. Life is spirit, like there is no separation, everything's spiritual to me. So you're here in life and your stuff's coming up and you don't quite understand it, so you move away from it and then you feel better, so you stay there. So I guess why this particular series came up is that when everything that I've achieved, even coming to speak to you today and, the series, at every moment when technology breaks or the wrong link goes out or, all of this sort of stuff, as we go along, we can see where some people could call it leadership too. Where's your leadership at? Where's your boundary to be able to hold the amount of information coming in? And when we find that boundary, it feels uncomfortable, and we can either, stay there and see, okay, we can regulate, or, you talked about bypassing. There's a time for people, and this can be tricky. So we might need to do a whole nother show on spiritual bypassing, or just bypassing our fear, because there are times, and for trauma work, we'll call it titrating. But even for, relational work and, looking at needs that aren't met and how that brings up your trigger or your behavior. So what's the behavior telling you? The behavior is language. So as you see a behavior, a word, a expression on a face, or even how you're sitting or your posture, all of these things, how are you Are you conscious or unconscious of it? So you can regulate or use a tool and technique to be able to integrate it a little more. So feel it, integrate it, feel it, integrate it. Or some people will just be constantly in meditation and never deal with anything, or right. So that titration, or that touching in, coming out, touching in, coming out, touching in, coming out, prepares, sort of, it's a practice. Everything is the practice.
It really is. And as you're saying that, it's simply coming back to the action of the breath, which is so central to everything. Without our breath, we wouldn't be here for very long. And we need the in-breath and the out-breath. That's the experience. We don't just
That's
want to be
life.
in one
Yeah.
place, all the time. We'd get bored. I can't remember what
Well,
being bored
we'd
is,
be
actually.
dead.
I would be dead, yeah, exactly. So you
Yeah.
you mentioned the gongs. I've got my heart gong here, which is something that I do before I actually play record. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if
Oh, so they don't.
with
Yeah.
so it might be quite nice to do that for my lovely listeners and viewers. But also, you said you've got a little practice for us as well.
Well,
So could
I
we
can
shall
make it as big. Yeah.
I do the gong first, then you talk us through, or the gong at the end of it, or what? What do you reckon, Cynthia?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of so let gong us in. Give
Gong
us
us
the
in.
clear the, yeah, let's integrate what we just said, because we said a lot, really.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like, are you sitting comfortably? Shimmy on down, connect with the Great Mother, and receive these beautiful frequencies of the heart just for you.
So we've been talking about the breath. And if I was to ask you, when we take a breath in, so take a breath in, that something is displaced, and breathe out through the nose or the mouth, doesn't matter. But if I was to tell you that something's displaced when we breathe, what is that something? What's that something else? I can hear all you answering. Yes. And if you think about when we breathe, when we're breathing out, and then take another breath in just through the nose. If I were to tell you that when breath comes in, your consciousness went out, or that there's the potential for that. And many of you watching this, if you're regular to Chi Time, may not. Others may not know what on earth I'm talking about. So when we talk about spirit, we talk about consciousness and levels of consciousness. So when we breathe, so if we're walking around or even thinking about something external to us and we're breathing, our consciousness or our spirit goes to what we're thinking about or what we're looking at or what we're wanting or what we're yearning. And then we take a breath out and it stays out. We can lose our the aspects of consciousness through our sensory system, right? So it comes in and it goes out through our senses. So this breath, I mean, I could go on about it, but I just want you to get a little understanding of what we're doing before we go into it. Is that when we breathe, we take a breath in, there's an aspect of our consciousness that goes out. And as we breathe out, that aspect of us, and you could call it, we know that breathing alone without prana, chi, spirit, is not healing. It's just breath. But when we bring in the consciousness, it's healing. So that's sort of what I'm getting at. It's just another way of discussing it if I'm confusing anyone. So let's take our hand. Let's use the minor chakra of the hand and put it on it's like the thymus. So over our heart, but there's a part over our thymus. And we can think of this as the cup or the chalice. And so we could take a breath in and feel it coming in to the chalice of our chest. And as it's coming in, we can say, come here. Okay, come here. And as we breathe out, we say, stay here. So breathing ourself back to ourself, breathing this spirit back and saying the intention, saying, come back now. You're not saying, please come back now. You're saying, breathe in, come back now to this place in the chest. As you breathe out, stay here now. Breathing in, come here now, or words similar. And as you breathe out, you're saying, spirit, stay here now. And just feel what that feels like, how you experience that. And you could do it a few more times. There's many ways of doing that breath, and it can be quite a large practice, because we can say, so when I teach trance channeling or trance healing, we use that, and I'll say, look at something in the room, an object in the room, and breathe. And because as soon as we look, generally we're patterned that our awareness goes to that object or that thing or that thought or whatnot. So it's about practicing being able to be external with our, and our senses turned on, but staying in the chest, staying in the heart, staying in the chalice, or however you want to feel that. So that's we can add one more little thing here. If you put I've got all these bat wings on, but if you put your hands under your armpits, this is it's also an energy medicine move, but really we're doing it as you breathe. You're feeling your chest expanding. And so for people that maybe need more containment and more practice being in the body, which is majority of us, let's face it, you're either going out of the body through your spiritual development, right? There's a stage where it's really, challenging to be here in the body, but we're after soul embodiment or being so expanded, but in the body as well, yin and yang, heaven and earth. So breathing and feeling that containment in the chest, and our ribs hold a lot of our sadness, sorrow, loss, and grief. The lungs, it's a metal element, so I'm not sure how you understand that, but right? So it's this connection to this part of our torso that breathes us. And when we bring our consciousness to it, we could say consciousness, we can say spirit, we could say however you feels good to you. But bringing that back in, so breathing now and go, breathing in, come back now into this container of the rib cage, and breathing out, stay here. And just having that little practice and see which one feels, it's not about better or worse. It's just about, the differences of, okay, when I'm contained, do I need a little bit more containment to be able to be in the body? There's a lot of people who have difficulty relating with their physical body. So many, and a lot of people aren't aware of it until they start dropping into the body and they feel so uncomfortable, or they feel that their bodies let them down in some way. And so they're wanting to escape, and that can show as people are going along with their conscious evolution or their evolution as a human, full stop. There starts to be this gap or this disjoint between the aspect of who you are that's not embodied and the one and your body. And there needs to be the connection of the two. So that in itself is a vulnerability. It's an intimacy that requires vulnerability to really come in and drop into who you are as a complete human, God-man, species, being. So
yes,
just a little
thank you, and there's the victory. When you can embody, or in your body, your spiritual being, your presence, your all aspects of you, when you can be like a unified field, unified force, that's the success. Might only be for a fleeting moment, or you might start to notice how that feels, and then what else can I do that's going to help me feel. And I love this holding here, because there was something really, that holding with your hands, you would hold a babe like that, or there's something about the healing chakras of the hands, you give them that to yourself, into your lungs, you could feel your hearts beating.
It's a heart point. So it's to do with energetically the heart point, but also the crossover, which is, we talked about in your interview, the 8. The 5 is the cross of the 8.
Oh, that's right. Yes, getting into the numbers, but it's this, how you hold yourself to talking about holding ourselves in that way, so that it feels safe to be in your body, because for so many of us it doesn't feel safe. So if you can do this for yourself and say, come back, bring back, stay here, you're owning your consciousness in your body. You're giving a direction to your soul that it's safe to be in this body. That's massive, Cynthia. Thank you so much.
I think it's massive purely in the work on any level. So people will say, well, what do? Do you do this and you do this and you do this? Every one of the programs that I've ever done and will do will start with, so in mediumship and, those sorts of consciousness or spirit work, it still is about dropping into the body and connecting to yourself. I'll say yourself and the self. So dropping in and connecting to the body. What do you feel? What do you sense? What do you know? It's mindfulness in some ways of knowing. But then we can go, okay, where is it tense? And a lot of people will know this, but what I found over the programs and the earlier Spirit Whisperers, which touched on a lot of this type of thing, was that because I'm a researcher, I have a research background, like I survey students before, during and after programs to see my hypothesis is that everybody can do what I'm talking about.
Right.
Everybody has the ability to turn on dormant sensory systems. Everybody has the ability to listen at all these different levels. We all do. So I went to prove it, and I did. Through the program, everybody was able to. And it's starting with connecting with yourself
Always.
before you connect to the self, all the other aspects of self.
Yeah.
That foundation, right?
Exactly. It's the dropping in, and this again is a huge topic, and hopefully Cynthia will come back again, or I'm sure we've got things are bubbling here.
We might have to have a regular show, right?
Yeah, that's what you need. You've got all these lovely people coming into Spirit Whisperers, and you might as well start up your own podcast, Mrs. So,
well, the Spirit Whisperer is that. But I mean, I guess if you want to know more, so can I just say about the Spirit Whisperer?
Yes, please.
We have the speakers that come on, but at the end of every Spirit Whisperer series, I come on and do a live where we can discuss what has been, talked about, some of the tools and techniques that different visionaries have shared, and also, my take on it, how I am in the world, and we do a Q&A. So that's all live, and it will be at the end of the series. And I call that the wrap up, because it's almost like I'm always about, we have a container. The container is the Spirit Whisperer. We start it, we have all this awesomeness, and then we complete it, much like you do with your show. You start it, you have all the awesomeness,
round it off and go, I wish we could talk forever. And I'm sure we will. And Cynthia's been on She Time before, so you will find other episodes with her on there, on it. And so how can people find out more? Is it spiritwhisperer.online? Is that right?
It is, yes.
Hey.
Spiritwhisperer.online. And there's an opt-in there, and it's free, so you can have a read and see what's there, or just opt in and you'll get the speakers emailed to you. And we're also doing a creative, of course I'm adding a creative process. It's optional. Yes. So that will be added at the beginning, so that people can follow and integrate as they go along through a creative process if they want to.
And when does that begin? When is that happening?
The 1st of December.
And it's going on for how long?
Till the 10th.
Okay.
Till the 10th.
Okay,
yes.
So we're wrapping up before the solstice then.
Yes, and and then I'll fill you in on what's coming on after that.
Oh yeah, exactly.
On that.
And if you're listening or watching this after the time, well, there will be more, basically. So
so I'll just say that after each series I always do like a live challenge. So it could be I'm not sure yet. I'm still feeling into it. So if you missed the Spirit Whisperer series, although you can, so it is free, but you can purchase the replay, the whole series as a replay, if you do miss it. So you still can go to Spirit Whisperer online.
Brilliant. Thank you.
There's always something.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for being part of She Time again. So lush to have you.
I knew I was in capable hands. I was like, what are we going to speak about today? Well, let's just see where we go. Because
exactly. Is there? I mean, you've shared so much, but is there any one thing that would just come in, just a couple of sentences, just for someone here and now that are going, oh, you know what? Yeah.
I guess it's this connection with the body and how we can regulate to elevate. So I call it relevate.
And a word player as well. I love it. Regulate to elevate. And on that note,
so that's the body.
Okay.
The body, and everything that encases the body, mind, into the soul, into spirit. So to rise and reveal. So it's this. I guess remembering all aspects of the self. So there again, the wordplay, but pulling all the aspects of the self back together. So that breath was perfect in a remembrance of who you are and how you are in the world.
Thank you. Thank you again. And thank you all for listening or watching. Your energy is so important, and so are you. So taking care of yourself is utterly vital right now. And so I hope you have found this useful, and that if you have, that you pass it on, the link to your friends. And just remember that when it all gets really, well, it's already getting pretty tough out there, you can always choose. You can choose how you feel, and you can use some of these practices to help you manage whatever it is that's coming up that is tricky. And as I might say, and often do, keep your chi up, my friend. And thank you so much for listening and watching.
Thank you.